Good morning. Today we'll be talking about to what extent are gifted individuals affected by anxiety. Mohammed Sar will be discussing the social perspective. I, Hassan Nicola, will be explaining the scientific perspective, and Mustafa Karuni will be explaining the educational perspective. In the article, Can You Make Yourself Smarter? Dan Hurley, health and medical journalist, talks about how um, he talks about how intelligence can be impacted by different things and change over time, but and impacted by environmental impacts, stuff like that. So we talked about how the mind is very flexible. It can be, and other aspects of personality can be impacted by that, which made us come up with the idea of anxiety and how it can be changed by things. And in the article from The Science of Genius by Dean Keith Simonton, professor of psychology, he explains the different aspects of what makes a person be considered genius and how they react differently compared to regular people, which made us think about how they could be impacted differently compared to other people when based on anxiety, and made us come up with a question: to what extent are gifted individuals affected by anxiety?
For our claims, socially gifted people experience more social anxiety than their normal peers.
For scientific, people tend to have more mental and physical medical issues due to anxiety.
And educationally speaking, test anxiety and a lower academic performance are some problems that could arise. So our solution basically consists of different steps to help relieve and cope with anxiety. The first step would be to teach proper coping and relaxation skills, such as taking deep breaths, muscle relaxation mechanisms. The second step could be to help stimulate creativity by by using creative arts that would help people relieve their stress, such as puzzles or stress relieving activities. And then emphasizing emotional well-being is also very important, as it helps the people express their emotions, along with their intelligence, and maybe extracurricular activities and stress-free activities could help with this.
Okay. So the solution could be effective only if people are willing to cooperate and accept help from other people, and with the whole process with a strong support system. However, not following the solution could cause a failure and could cause severe depression and decline mental and physical mental health, as well as decrease in social skills.
Our alternative solution, also stated by Barbara Swikard, who is a professor in education, would be to teach and encourage positive social skills through role-playing and some presentations, maybe stimulate outside or real-world experiences, such as making new friends, joining clubs and teams that could help stimulate relaxation.
Okay, from the social perspective, gifted people have been experiencing social classification for a long time. As stated by Yazid Bakr, a PhD in education, that the non-gifted people or individuals will distance themselves from the gifted because they think it's hard to share or connect with the gifted, which is causing a serious problem to the gifted. And one of these problems is bullying. And as stated by Jai G. Ryu, PhD in medicine, that the negative social experience from being bullied among the gifted students may lead to a feeling of rage and anxiety, which may contribute to the involvement in subsequent aggression. However, like other people, people think that the cognitive ability of the gifted will help them manage the emotional and social challenges. However, this is completely wrong. According to this graph, we see that high intelligent people will face more social anxiety and anxiety disorders more than their normal peers. Also, Jean Sundia, professor in education, states that 2/3 of gifted students have experienced bullying. Moving on, gifted individuals strive to meet people's expectations, including their parents and their teachers. As stated by Linda Brody, educational professor from the University of Johns Hopkins, that the failure to meet those expectations could impact the self-confidence and their peer relationships. And consequently, the feeling could cause anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. Not only that, but they rely on themselves to strive for success and education, and they're afraid to ask their teachers or their classmates. They feel uneasy to ask them, and which in turn cause a really an emotional and physical consequence with a potential impact on their health and school performance. For my solution, we should educate parents to have a greater and effective social time with their children inside and outside school.
Okay. For the scientific perspective, I'm going to be talking about how it impacts it impacts them medically. So, according to Enzi Taylor in her research, PhD in clinical health psychology, she talks about how gifted children are more likely to experience heart diseases if they struggle with anxiety, and they're also more likely to deal with heart disease over time as they grow into adults due to strains of anxiety over time and dealing with stress and all that stuff. They all, and according to Leah Legos, PhD in psychology, she talks about how anxiety can impact gifted individuals' physical health condition when it comes to eating disorders, obesity, especially. It can also lead to less sleep and less exercise, which can strain their living conditions, which could be simply taken care of if they were able to manage their health better and try harder to exercise and move on from there. In this graph, you can see how people of higher intelligence can actually be more impacted with worries, which could lead to more anxiety disorders and mood disorders. But in addition to environmental triggers, it can give physiological impacts, which could cause diseases and more problems due to their health. Anxiety can also impact people's mental health. So, in a research done by Elizabeth Shaughnessy, PhD in special education, she talks about how IB students struggle to find proper coping mechanisms and also use inefficient ways such as procrastination or just avoiding tasks, which can hurt the anxiety even more and impact them more deeply over time because they're not dealing with it the proper way. In a study done by Joanna Sack, PhD in education, she studied the Duke University Talent Identification Program, where she realized that many are impacted with anxiety over time, and they have to deal with many strains. They explained that in this program, many go through stress management seminars and activities to help them deal with it by trained professionals who are able to help them properly, which seems to be helping them more. Many people, according to Joe Adesek, think that different individuals are of higher intelligence, so they don't need any help coping with their anxiety because they're already more trained, more prepared to be able to do that, which is a false statement since they need help and support of groups to be able to cope with anxiety, since it would be more helpful to them and to cope properly. My solution for scientific perspective would be to simply have more better care to yourself, such as eating better, training better, exercising, try to sleep better. It just help them because the same with anxiety, impacts your health. You just by exercising and doing all that stuff, you can actually improve your anxiety as a whole. In addition to that, you could add help from others, and having a good support system could help you deal with anxiety better.
So from the educational perspective, test anxiety is one of the main problems that could arise. According to Hdmkms, who's a psychology professor at the University of Tetovo, the total score of intelligence correlates directly with test anxiety and academic stress, which further proves that these two go hand in hand. Another problem is that high test anxiety could also lower one's grade as one of the downsides. And this study was done by Burrows et al., who's at the Department of Psychology at Butler University. He stated that there's a 1/3 letter overall grade difference between undergraduates with high test anxiety and undergraduates with low test anxiety. However, others might believe that embracing stress and anxiety could provide like some sort of motivation to do well in your grades, as it provides like a focus. However, embracing this stress and letting stress like get to you could lead to many like psychological, physiological, and behavioral consequences. In addition to test anxiety, an overall like decrease in school performance could arise, such as in the study done by Dawood, who's a professor at the College of Nursing at the King Saud bin Abdulaziz University. It might make students like too nervous while they're doing their assignments, which could increase the chance of making mistakes. And emotional dysregulation is also one of the problems that could arise from this as a stem off. Study done by Hartman et al., who's a professor at Valdosta State University. Individuals high in both emotional dysregulation and anxiety may encounter difficulty focusing on the task at hand as a result of emotional stressors. We can stress on the term can't focus at the task on hand, as it could reflect on their schoolwork and they might not be able to work to their best ability. And in this chart, it shows that nearly 91% of college students surveyed felt that they were experiencing average stress or worse, and nearly 23% reported the anxiety impacted. The solution would be to help implement mental health practitioners in schools. The study was done by Drake, who's a PhD in psychiatry and behavioral sciences. And these mental health practitioners could be in schools. They could help students who are in need of it, and it's one of the ways to help with this mechanism. And this chart shows some of the different things that these practitioners can help with.
Okay, for our conclusion, socially, educating parents will have an overall better understanding about anxiety.
For scientific, proper self-care and getting help from other people and having a good support system will help them.
And in the educational perspective, mental health practitioners should be implemented in schools.
Okay, first question goes to Mohammed. What is the way in which your team's resolution makes you think differently about your own individual research?
Okay, so for our team resolution, we talked about how we could have different steps of solving this problem, while mine only talked about how we educate parents, and my solution could have more steps than that.
Okay, second question goes to Mustafa. What was the strongest counter-argument to the solution or conclusion your team identified, and why?
The strongest counter-argument to our solution would be that some of these students might not want to accept this help and they might reject it, and that's pretty much one of the main barriers that this solution will be able to work.
And last question, Hassan. Describe an argument from one of your peers' individual reports that made you think differently about your team's solution or conclusion.
Okay, so in Mohammed Sarai's argument, he talked about how expectations might be expectation might like train people and cause more anxiety to them, which in our team solution we actually went back and talked about how we could stimulate creativity into good activities, which like stress-free activities that would not like force them to actually like act like to actually be successful in it, and just simply have fun instead of worrying about doing good on the task. And in my that was it.